All right, in this video, we're going to look at how to draw and interpret box plots. So we do have some steps here that we're going to look at real quick, and then we'll go ahead and do an example on how to draw a box plot. So the first thing we're going to do is determine the lower and upper fences. This is what's going to help us determine if we have any outliers in our data set. Then we're going to draw a number line that is longer than the range of our data, and we're going to insert vertical lines at the first quartile, the median, and the third quartile. And then we're going to enclose those vertical lines in a box. Then we're going to temporarily label the upper and lower fence with a bracket. Okay, and then we're going to draw a line from Q1 to the smallest data value that is larger than the lower fence. And then we're going to draw a line from Q3 to the largest data value that is smaller than the upper fence. This part sounds weird. I promise it'll make more sense when we do the actual box plot. It's weird in words, okay? So these lines are called our whiskers. And then we're going to label our outliers. So if we have any data values outside of those temporary brackets we drew back in step 3, we're going to mark those as outliers with an asterisk. And then finally, we're going to remove those temporary brackets because they're not actually part of a box plot. So some formulas we're going to need. So if you recall from before, the IQR is the interquartile range, and that is found by taking our third quartile and subtracting the first quartile. So the lower fence equation, this is a new one for you guys. So the lower fence equation is going to be the first quartile minus 1.5 times that IQR. So that 1.5 is always going to be there. The values that are going to change for this are Q1 and the IQR based on your data set, but you're always going to have that 1.5 in here. Okay, and then also remember order of operations. So we want to do this 1.5 times the IQR first, and then you can go ahead and do that subtraction. You don't want to do Q1 minus 1.5, find out what that is, and then multiply, because that's not right. Okay, so multiply first, then subtract. So then our upper fence is our third quartile plus 1.5 times the IQR. And again, make sure you do that multiplication piece first, then you can go back and do the addition. Okay, and this is what's going to tell us whether we have outliers or not. So this is, we're going to label the values that we get from these as these temporary brackets that we're going to look at for outliers. So let's go ahead and get into this. So I have a 5-number summary for us. This did come from a data set. We're just going to look at the 5-number summary. So we've got 50, 72, 75, 81, and 92. Okay, so 50 would be our minimum, 72 would be the Q1, 75 is going to be our Q2, 81 is going to be our Q3, and 92 is going to be our maximum. And remember, Q2 is also known as the median. Ooh, that looks kind of funky. Let's rewrite that real quick. M-E-D. Okay, so first we're going to start by calculating the upper and the lower fences. So the lower fence, I'm going to shorthand it as an LF. That's going to be our Q1, which is 72, minus 1.5, the decimal point there, times, oh, we didn't do the IQR. We got to go back and do the IQR real quick. Okay, so I'm just going to undo all this. Go back. Okay. We got to do the IQR first, because if we don't know the IQR, then we can't figure out these fences. So the IQR is Q3 81 minus Q1 72, and that gives us 9. So then the lower fence is 72 minus, 1.5 times 9. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and calculate that, and that gives us 1.5 times 9. Should have done this before. Don't be like me. Oh my goodness. 13.5 when we do that multiplication. So then 72 minus that is 58.5. And then our upper fence. We're going to do 81 plus 1.5 times 9. Okay, so that 1.5 times 9 again is 13.5. So now we're going to add 81 and we're going to get 94.5. So that's our upper and our lower fences. Okay, so now we can go ahead and we can look at our 5-number summary. Okay, and go ahead and create that box plot from that. So I'm going to go make a new slide. So we're going to do step 2. We're going to draw a number line. So number line, vertical line. You can also do this, this is a horizontal line. You could also do this vertically if you wanted to, but I'm going to do it horizontally just because I have a little bit more room here. Okay, so it needs to be at least as wide or at least as long as the range of our data set. So our data set starts at 50 and ends at 92. So it needs to start at least at 50 and it needs to go up to at least 92. So I'm going to go ahead and label this a 95 so I can go by 5s because that's a lot easier to label. Okay, so 50, 55, 60, 65, 70. Make sure these are evenly spaced out. I'm going to run out of room. This is my life. Okay, here we go. Okay, I got a little funky there at the end. Do a better job than that. Like I said, don't be like me. Do what I say, not what I do. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and label the values of Q2 or the median, Q1 and Q3 with vertical lines. And we want to put these vertical lines above this number line. We don't want it to go on top of the number line. So if I go back, our Q1 was 72. So I'm going to find approximately 72 and I'm going to draw a vertical line. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to find Q2 or the median, which is 75. So right above the 75, I'm going to draw a vertical line. And then finally, Q3 was 81. So at 81, I'm going to draw a vertical line. These lines should all be about the same length, and they should all be nice and even in a row. So now I'm going to go ahead and enclose these lines into, ooh, that wasn't pretty. Let's try that again. I'm going to go ahead and enclose these lines into a box. And there we have the box of our box plot. Okay. All right, now I'm going to switch colors. And we're going to label the upper and the lower fences with a temporary little bracket. So our lower fence was 58.5. So that guy's maybe like right here. And then, oops, wrong direction. And then our upper fence was 94.5. So that's like right there. Okay, so now these are my brackets. Okay, I'm actually going to switch 4 and 5 here real quick, guys, because this makes a little bit more sense than what I have written down. So you can go ahead and switch this. So now I'm going to look at my 5-number summary, and I'm going to determine if any of these numbers would fall outside of these two lines. So that means, is anything going to be this way or this way from this bracket that I drew? And the answer is yes. 50, this guy right here, the number 50, is going to be smaller than this bracket. So therefore, 50 is an outlier, and he gets labeled as a star because he's an outlier and he's fancy. Okay, so now I can go ahead and I'm going to label my maximum first, which is 92. So that would fall about there. So I'm going to draw a smaller line at 92, and then I'm going to connect this line to my Q3. Now I also need to label a whisker going to the left, and I don't have that number in the 5-number summary, but I do know what that number was from the original data set, and this is a data set that we used in the previous notes. So if I ignore 50 from the data set that I was using, the next smallest number would be 68. So I'm going to go ahead and label the 68 and connect that guy. And this was from the data set that we used when we learned about the 5-number summary. So you can see we started with 50, and then the next smallest number was a 68. So now the last thing I need to do for my box plot is go ahead and erase these 2 green temporary brackets that I drew. And I'm going to go ahead and annotate this for you guys real quick. So right here, this is our minimum, and it's also an outlier. Okay, this die right here is our Q1. This die is the median. This is Q3. This is the maximum. Okay, and then this 68 value that I had to put on here, we don't really have a label or a name for him. It's just a way for us to finish creating that box plot. So this is how you create and read a box plot.